Hi, I'm Paul Higgins and this is Paul Higgins Photography. Today's video is something that I've been trying to do for a little bit of time. I wanted to take a look at the Lumix G9 and the Olympus OMD E-M1 Mark II in a head-to-head to see which one I'm going to buy. So, here's the video. As I mentioned before, this video is going to be on a comparison between this, which is the Olympus OMD E-M1 Mark II, and this, which is the Panasonic Lumix G9. I rented both of these cameras from Lens Rental, link below, somewhere down there, and the video is going to be broken up into really 2.5, maybe 1.5, maybe 2 parts. First part is a quick tour around each of the cameras. So I've got videos where I do side by side and a look at all the buttons and what everything does and comments on the cameras. Second bit is showing some pictures that I took with these two cameras, and then going into a discussion of the pros and cons and what I like about each one and which one I think I'm going to buy. So stay tuned. Okay, so this is a quick look at these two cameras that are pretty much the two competitors in the semi-pro, pro micro four thirds category. So this is what they look at like from the kind of side view. Quick look at the top of both of them. So the top of both of them, if I can stop this one from moving, which I cannot, he seems to want to move, this guy. The Lumix has this LCD display on the top. Also, it has the adjustment button. The adjustment, front adjustment, is a little clicker on the. Hopefully, you can see that pretty well. The next thing you can see about both of them is that the Lumix is significantly larger in size. Other than that, button layouts look very similar. The only thing that I had noticed, which I hadn't noticed until recently, is that the little strap thing on the Olympus is actually on the top, whereas it's on the side on the Panasonic, on the Lumix. So you can see the differences. If I hold them up, you can kind of see them a little bit clearer, what they both look like. So that's the top of both of them. If we then move, this is what they look like on the front. At the front, and again you can see, hopefully you can see the function buttons. They both have 2 function buttons. The Lumix has the slightly bigger grip, and the Lumix also has that little switch at the bottom of it that you can change and program. So that's the front. Then this is the base of each of them. Trying not to get too many reflections from the Lumix camera. So pretty similar underneath. On the back, I'll just leave them like that on the back. I think they won't move, hopefully. So on the back you can see they're quite similar. Both have flippy screens that behave pretty much the same way. I'll show you the flippy screens like now. There you go. So that's the Olympus with its flippy screen. So it tilts all the way around, both ways. Tilts that way, and it will tilt all the way frontwards, and then you can close it. So it's got a pleasant click, not a big click. Then if we look at the Lumix, so the Lumix kind of behaves the same way. Interestingly though, the Lumix doesn't go all the way to horizontal going that way. It's kind of interesting. And when I close the Lumix one, there's a little bit more of a positive click on the Lumix. You can see the function keys on both ones. I'll do individual shots of both afterwards. This is a comparison video. Then on the Lumix camera, if I can get it open, that's where the SD cards go. And on the Olympus, similar kind of layout for where the cards go. And then if I close those up, on the other side here are the ports, which open individually on the Olympus. Actually the bottom 2 open together. So there's, you can probably see what they are. There's headphones, HDMI, microphone. I'll leave them all open, trusting that there's three separate. And if we open them up on the Lumix, top one is for headphones, and then the bottom two are HDMI, full HDMI, and the different USB. So, and I know that one does charging as well, so you can do charging. And then the microphone is a separate one at the top, like that. Hopefully you can see that. So it's a quick run through of the two cameras together, and we'll do a quick look at each one separately. Okay, and we're off with the walkthrough of the Olympus. So first off, no lens of course on these at the moment. So they've got two function buttons on the front and the release. The adjustment dial is here, and there's a socket for coax flash. Next we'll look at the sides. So this is the left hand side as you're holding the camera. So it's got I didn't close these from before. So it's got a microphone, a headphones, HDMI, and a USB. So the HDMI is one of those mini ones. USB, I wonder if those are the one. Anyway, so USB looks non-standard. Headphones and the microphone. Okay, so that's those guys. That's all that's on that side. A little tricky to close, but not too bad. Then let's look at the top. So here's the top. Whoa. Here's the top. The top has the on-off button. It also has an autofocus setting button, which is good, and also the individual or multi-shot settings on there. There's the on-off button, the modes. There's a, you can hear it here. There's a lock button, so you can lock it and it won't move. It's got the rear clicker adjustment here. There's a button that you can change the function of here, and then there's the video record button, and also, as I mentioned, the clip is on the top too. Alright, let's look at the other side here very quickly. So the only thing that we have here is, you can see the slots. Oh, there's the slots. There's also this, which I don't know what that is. So that is a little button that I have no clue what that's for. So I'll have to go and look that up and figure out what that's for. Interesting. Here's the back. So there's the viewfinder adjust button here. There's the autofocus, and you can also have a function there. So there's the autofocus lock. There's the info button, which I put my finger over. There's just a usual pad up and down, left and right, and OK. Menu button, play button, and the move things to the rubbish bin. We talked about the flippy screen before. It flips all the way forward and to horizontal. So if I move it this way, put it back on, we can switch the camera on. So switch camera on. Comes on pretty quickly. The menu system is the crazy menu system that the Olympuses have. That's all very good, and it's touch screen, so you touch and take pictures, or you can change the settings on it like that. So that's the Olympus. Do we look at the bottom? I don't know, but anyway, here's the bottom. So just the battery access, and not the battery access. You can see it's quite a big battery, and also I did notice that the tripod mount is very close to the front of the camera, like it is on most of the Olympuses. Okay, that's the Olympus. Now we're going to do a quick run through of the Lumix G9. So here's the front again. As mentioned before, two function buttons, a little further apart, which I thought was kind of nice. But I think the Olympus had a little cutout or something in it, so you can actually see feel the difference. So there's the on-off switches kind of at the front as well. You can kind of see there, and also there's the little clicky set button there, as on the Olympus. Coax flash. Which do we do next? I think we did the this side next. So on the side, microphone, headphones, HDMI, and USB. USB is a USB-C, as you can see. and it also charges, which is nice. I'm not going to open the other two because they're pretty straightforward. On the top here, as we mentioned before, it's on the top, the modes on the different side. This has a lock like the Olympus does. Also down here, which the Olympus doesn't have, is it has the click setting for individual, multi-shoot, timer and that kind of stuff down here, which I think is kind of nice. Moving along a little bit, it has the LCD display, so I'll switch it on and you can see the LCD display. Hopefully, yep, there it goes, and it's got a little light on it as well, which makes it completely unreadable in this light. It has a white balancer, ISO and exposure compensation button. As we mentioned before, the front adjust is actually on the top. Whoa, can't see that, there it is. And the rear is here. The rear is here. And that's it from the back. So here's the back. There's a preview button up here, function button. There's the little joystick thing here, which is kind of nice. Have to play around with that. There's autofocus. You can probably just about see you can set the autofocus to continuous or single or manual focus from this little clicker, which I suspect you can probably program the Olympus to do the same thing. Function button. This has a rotatable thing as well as the up, down, left and right on the adjustment cursors. There's a function button and the display button. Open this gun up. As I mentioned before, this has a nice click, which is nice. So yeah, so the flippy screen flips all the way upside down like that, and like I mentioned before, it only goes to not completely horizontal. Let's see that. So it's not completely horizontal. So flip it all the way around so we can see. It's got the better, I would say, of the two cameras menu options over here on the Panasonic. The only other things that I haven't shown is this V mode thing here. This is for changing the resolution of the monitor, the eyepiece monitor, which is nice. I think that's it. Oh, and we just need to open up, and I'll just turn the camera off here. Oops. And then, yes, this is where the cards go. Again, a little tricky, but in they go. In there. Nice grip on this one. It's quite tactile. Okay, so that is the Lumix G9 run through. So we're going to do the pros and cons of the Olympus OMD E-M1 Mark II to start with. First pro, and one of the major ones, was it's really small. It's really small for a professional camera. It's great. It's much smaller than the G9, as you could see from the video, and you know, it is great. It's very small and light. The second thing is it has a really nice tactile grip material on it. The actual grip itself is nice, but the whole material on the camera is very good, so that I did really like that as well. The next one is about the flippy screen. So both cameras have flippy screens, as you saw in the videos, but the flippy screen on the G9 does not go horizontal in one direction. It goes kind of sort of, I don't know what, 20 degrees, something like that, to the ground, which is a bit weird. I don't know why it doesn't go all the way, but it doesn't. So that was a bit odd. So the Olympus wins out on that. Next thing is it fits in my current camera bag. Now that's not a big deal, but I do like my current camera bag that I have. So it fitted in there pretty nicely with the Olympus 12-40 f2.8 lens on it. So that was nice. The next thing about the Olympus that I really like is the super control panel. It really allows you to get access to absolutely everything on the Olympus, which is really good. I do like that a lot. The G9, you can kind of sort of do this, a similar sort of thing, but not quite as well as you can on the Olympus cameras. I use it a lot on my E-M10 Mark II as well. It is very handy to be able to get access to all those settings and controls from one place. And the final one, which I really like, is the charger. The charger, when you put the batteries on the charger, they start off with a flashing yellow light, and then the light goes green once the battery's fully charged, which I like. A lot of camera
battery chargers, including the one for the G9, the light comes on while it's charging, and then it just goes off when it's fully charged. And I find that kind of confusing because you can't tell whether it's fully charged or not. So I do like that indication. Also, and I couldn't really get this I couldn't really understand this, but the pulsing of the light shows roughly how much charge there is in the battery. But so there are little indications on the charger, but I couldn't really make any sense of it. So anyway, so those are the pros, and then the cons or disadvantages. The first one is the price. So we have to do this in context. It's January 2020 at the moment. In December, between November and December, the Olympus was at about $1,300, and the G9 was about $1,000. So there's the $300 price difference. At the moment, the Olympuses are still on sale at $1,300, but the Panasonics have gone back up to their original price of $1,200. So there's only a $100 price difference at the moment, but I don't really think that there are any advantages really that justify that $100 difference. And once the Olympus goes back up to probably $1,600 price point, then it is quite a lot more expensive than the G9. The next thing that I didn't really like was the position of the tripod socket. As you saw in the videos, the tripod socket on the Olympus is very close to the front of the camera body, which means that if you put larger lenses on the camera, it's going to be difficult to mount it on a tripod. All the Olympus cameras seem to have that. My OMD E-M1 Mark II also has the same problem. The tripod mounting is very close to the front of the camera body. The next disadvantage that I had was USB and HDMI choices that Olympus made. They're both not the normal ones, is all I can say. So the USB cable is proprietary, and the HDMI cable is one of the mini HDMI cables rather than just a standard like it is on the G9. The next thing, which is probably the major thing, is the confusing menus. Olympus is infamous or famous for its confusing menus, and the E-M1 is no different. The E-M1 Mark II is no different. They've just when I started with when I got the two cameras, the first thing I did was to switch on back button focus on both of the cameras, and the Olympus took me a really long time to figure it out. Okay, I had a little bit to drink, but the E-M1 was very difficult, and the G9 was pretty straightforward. The Panasonic menus are much better than the ones on the Olympus, so they are a bit confusing. The next one is a downside to the batteries. I mentioned the positive about the color changing charging light, which was good. The downside is a square battery, so it'll go in either way. So I really hate batteries where you have to physically look at the damn battery, look at the contacts and everything to try and figure out which way up it goes. With the G9, it'll only go in one way. It's the same with the Olympus D7000 that I have. The battery will only go in one way, so which is great when if you need to change batteries, like you do a lot with the Micro Four Thirds cameras. It's just frustrating when the batteries are symmetrical. And the final one was while I was out taking sunrise photographs with the two cameras a few days ago, the card failed. One of the cards failed just as I was about to start taking pictures with the Olympus, and it was very difficult to tell what the heck was going on. So eventually I ended up swapping over from the Olympus to the Panasonic, and that camera dealt with the card failure much better. So in a tight situation, the G9 was much better than the E-M1, which was a bit sad that it worked that way. And one thing I did learn from that experience was to make sure that you set the cards to duplicate each other, so both cards have the JPEGs and the RAW files. Originally I'd had JPEGs going to one SD card and the RAW files going to the other one, and that's not really a great approach with if you get a fault in one of the cards. So now I learned something. It was a learning experience. So that's the review of the pros and cons of the Olympus OMD E-M1 Mark II. So now I'm going to go through the pros and cons of the Panasonic Lumix G9. So the first pro that I really like is that it has the top LCD screen. Okay, it's not up to the standards of these new Nikon mirrorless cameras, but I do like having the top panel. It shows you a summary of what all your settings are, so that's really nice. I did really like that, and that you could illuminate it. Again, as I mentioned in the Nikon the Olympus video, then it's very similar to how the Nikon professional and semi-pro cameras behave, like the D7000. The next thing that I didn't think I was going to like, but I actually did when I was using it in the field, was that instead of the front wheel adjustment toggle, whatever you want to call them, thing on the front of the camera, on most cameras they're horizontal, so they're just near the shutter release, but on the G9 it's just behind the shutter release and it's vertical. And I did think I was going to like that, but actually I did quite like that. It was quite good to be able to have that, be able to operate that with my finger while I still have my other finger on the shutter release. So that was really good. The next thing that I do like about the G9 is that you can charge it with the USB cable in the camera. I really like that. That's kind of going to be handy if I'm driving around. I can just plug it in to the USB in my car and charge it up a little bit between locations, so that's good. The next one is, whoa, what a lot of options for buttons and switches and dials, and the number of options are unbelievable. So yes, on the Olympus you could even do more, which was interesting, that you could change which button was the on-off switch, which I thought was kind of interesting. But the number of buttons and options for changing and customization and the joystick were great on the G9. I particularly like the switch on the front, which you can use to do various things, but I like that for being able to switch into silent mode. Nice way of just being able to do that. So that was really good. I did like that. As I mentioned in the Olympus part of this, the next thing I really liked was the ability to be able to navigate the menu options easier. The Olympus menus are very difficult. The Panasonic ones are really a lot easier and easier to understand and easier to navigate. So that was really good. The next one, which kept coming back to me, and I mentioned it already, is it really does feel very similar to my Nikon D7000. The battery even is the same shape as the D7000 battery, which was a bit freaky. But there's a lot of familiarity with the D7000, which really helped me be able to use the camera and be able to get to use the camera very quickly. Just the familiarity was great. Next, as I mentioned in the Olympus piece of this pros and cons, the G9 is much cheaper than the Olympus. I haven't really talked about image quality, but the image quality between the two cameras is pretty similar. I didn't I'm showing pictures as I'm doing this voiceover, but the picture quality was pretty good. Well, actually awesome with both. So there wasn't really, which is why I haven't really talked about it in these two reviews, because the picture quality was very, very similar. So based on picture quality, the price differential between the two cameras at the moment it's $100. The G9 is $100 cheaper, but when the Olympus offers finish and it goes back up to $1,600, it could be $400 or $500 more expensive. And I don't really think that there's much advantage apart from the fact that the Olympus is a little bit smaller. The other thing that I really like about the Panasonic cameras, and I did a video on this, which nobody's watching, but anyway, I don't mind, is the Wi-Fi behavior. So the Wi-Fi behavior with the Panasonic cameras, you can do it in what I'd say the traditional camera Wi-Fi, where you connect to the cameras, you connect your phone to the camera's Wi-Fi, but you can also connect these cameras to your router in your house, or connect it to a computer and have the pictures automatically copy to your computer or your network in your house, which I find very, very helpful. So those are the pros of the G9. What are the disadvantages? And to be honest, I only found one. The main disadvantage that I found for the G9 was it is a little on the large side. I know that Micro Four Thirds cameras are supposed to be small, and the G9 is not a small camera. It's not a large camera. It's kind of similar in dimensions, a little bit smaller, but similar to the D7000, as I keep mentioning. It is a little smaller, and it is a lot lighter. It's a couple of 100 grams lighter. And of course, when you factor in the weight of the lenses, it's a lot lighter. But it isn't a small camera. But to be honest, I didn't feel that was a problem with it. When I was actually holding it and everything, it was very fitted into my hands nicely, and was a great tool. So in conclusion, the cameras are both awesome. Whichever one you choose is great. If you're an Olympus person and you've got a lot of Olympus lenses and things like that, especially the newer lenses with the dual stabilization, I would go with the E-M1 Mark II. If you're like me, I have one very expensive Olympus lens, which is the 12-40, which I still think is awesome with its constant f2.8 aperture. But no, it doesn't have any image stabilization in it. So I'm going to go with the G9 purely because I like it. It has a lot more features, a lot more functions, and ultimately it just feels like a nice camera. So there's my conclusions. If you've got any comments, put them below. I've been sharing photographs of the two cameras as I've been doing this voiceover stuff, so hopefully those were helpful too. And this is Paul Higgins, and this is Paul Higgins Photography. See you soon. Bye. A quick addendum to the video that you've just been watching. I didn't mention image quality in it. Oh! Image quality from both cameras, as hopefully you've seen from the selection that I've been displaying while I've been doing my detailed comments, are awesome. Both cameras did great in normal light and in low light. Performance was superb. I also did some additional tests with the G9 because a lot of people have mentioned about its autofocus performance at low light. It worked really well. It was excellent. So you do well with either of these two cameras, both the E-M1 Mark II and the G9. They're both great, high quality. JPEGs out of the cameras are great. Also, of course, you can clearly pull a lot of stuff out of the raw files too. So I'm choosing the G9. The E-M1 Mark II is still a superb camera, as I mentioned, especially if you've got dual IS or IS lenses from Olympus. So that's it. Thank you very much for your time. I'm Paul Higgins, and this is Paul Higgins Photography. And to conclude with, here are all some of the that I took out of the videos. See you next time. Take care. Bye.
For the and I